Harmony Springs and Samuel's Song. Harmony Springs, despite its name, offered Samuel, Harmonica Sam, Johnson no such concord, only the jarring static of ridicule. In the town square, with his steadfast Australian shepherd Blue, a furry shadow at his heels, Sam would lift the harmonica. Each note was a vibrant brushstroke, painting the world he couldn't see with melody. Though raw, his music was honest, brimming with bluesy laments and resilient yearnings, emotions he knew intimately. But the younger set of Harmony Springs often traded empathy for uproarious laughter. It was a familiar script. Sam began with a hesitant, "Oh, Susanna," the tune wobbly at first, gaining strength with each breath. Blue's tail tapped a gentle rhythm against the cobblestones. Several townsfolk hurried by, offering small acknowledgments. Then came the chorus of children. "Harmonica Sam's serenading us again!" a boy crowed, a gap-toothed grin splitting his face. A wave of suppressed giggles erupted. "Sounds like a strangled goose," another piped up. "Play something danceable, old-timer." "Oh, right, you can't even see to trip the light, fantastic." Sam's fingers fumbled. The harmonica tumbled onto the worn leather of his boot. He swallowed, that old familiar burn of shame prickling his throat. Kids, he reminded himself, just kids. But their taunts were like thrown stones, chipping away at his spirit. Blue offered a soft whine, a wet nudge of his nose against Sam's hand. The dog shifted, a furry bulwark between Sam and his tormentors. "Leave him alone!" a girl's voice rang out, surprisingly forceful. But she was a single voice against a tide. Sam reached down, his fingers finding purchase in Blue's reassuring fur. The dog's warmth offered a scant comfort. "It's fine, Blue," he murmured, the words shaky. "They just don't get it." Yet, a tide of despair threatened to engulf him. Did anyone truly understand? Did anyone appreciate the soulful melodies he offered? Was he doomed to be a mere sideshow for Harmony Springs' cruelest hearts? With slow, defeated motions, he packed his meager belongings. The harmonica felt like a lead weight, a symbol of aspirations dashed. He and Blue retreated from the square, the children's laughter an echoing sneer that drowned out the faint hopeful tune that usually resided within him. Back at his sparsely adorned cottage, Sam collapsed into his creaking armchair. Blue nudged his hand once more, then rested his head heavily in Sam's lap, his loyal brown eyes offering unconditional support. Sam stroked the dog's silken ears, finding a temporary refuge in the animal's presence. "Why, Blue?" he choked out, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Why the meanness?" Blue offered no verbal reply, but his solid weight was an anchor. He was Sam's constant, a furry island in a sea of unkindness. And in that moment, Sam clung to him, clung to the fragile hope that one day, perhaps, Harmony Springs might hear the music in his soul, and not just the imperfections in his playing. Blue's constant comfort. The treacherous cobblestones of Willow Creek threatened to send Samuel sprawling with every other step. He'd be a spectacle, an easy target for the town's derision were it not for Blue. The dog, his loyal guide, gently steered him clear of a jutting rock with a nudge of his velvety nose. "Attaboy, Blue," Samuel murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. The cloying stench of wood smoke mingled with the sour tang of old beer, an aroma that seemed uniquely potent within Willow Creek's confines. He felt the prickling sensation of unseen eyes boring into his back as they passed the mercantile. He could practically taste the judgmental gazes, hear the stifled titters that followed in their wake. Blue, as if attuned to Samuel's rising disquiet, emitted a sharp bark, silencing a group guffawing near the blacksmith's. The merriment evaporated, replaced by grumbled insults. Samuel flinched, yet a flicker of thankfulness warmed him. Blue was his bulwark, his steadfast protector. Quickening his stride, his fingers tightened around the worn leather of his harmonica case. The rhythmic tap of Blue's paws on the stones acted as a comforting measure, counting down to the relative peace of the town square. Even there, the jeers occasionally found him, though diluted, less pointed. Reaching the square's calmer atmosphere, Samuel sank onto a bench, warmed by the afternoon sun, beneath the boughs of an ancient oak. His lunch was meager, a boiled egg and a chunk of stale bread. He cracked the egg, peeling away the chalky shell. A faint whiff of sulfur drifted on the breeze. He ate half, drawing out the flavor, then offered the rest to Blue. The dog accepted it with care, his tail drumming against the wooden slats. He broke off a piece of bread and shared it. "You deserve better, pal," Samuel confessed softly, his voice thick with affection. "We both do." Blue licked his hand, a silent, comforting promise etched in the warm rasp of his tongue. Samuel closed his eyes, conjuring a vision of the stage, the music, the faces in the crowd, not the scornful faces of Willow Creek, but faces alight with appreciation, with empathy. A distant possibility, perhaps, but Blue never mocked his aspirations. Blue simply listened, head tilted inquisitively, as Samuel poured his soul into the harmonica, its poignant melodies weaving a tapestry of hope and defiance into the clear air. For the present, that was sustenance enough. For the present, Blue's steadfast presence was all he needed. The Man in Black. Dust devils danced on Harmony Springs' main street, swirling around abandoned dreams and forgotten promises. A sleek, black Cadillac, polished to a mirror sheen, sliced through the stagnant air, a stark contrast to the rusted pickup trucks and faded storefronts. It purred to a halt outside the dusty window of the Harmony Diner. The town held its breath. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the afternoon sun. Tall, lean, clad entirely in black, suit, shirt, boots, he moved with a quiet confidence that drew every eye. He adjusted his dark glasses, the only break in the monochrome, and pushed open the diner door. Inside, the usual lunchtime drone of gossip and complaint died instantly. Even Mildred, perpetually perched on her stool, nursing a lukewarm coffee, turned her head. Samuel, hunched over his harmonica in the corner, almost stopped playing. Almost. The mournful blues riff poured from the small instrument, a raw, heartfelt cry against the silent judgment of the room. The Man in Black ignored the stares. He walked directly to the corner, pulling out a chair at Samuel's rickety table. Samuel, startled, fumbled, nearly dropping his harmonica. "Mind if I listen?" the man asked, his voice a low, resonant rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Samuel, speechless, could only shake his head. He raised the harmonica to his lips again, his fingers trembling slightly. The music, initially hesitant, gained strength, fueled by the stranger's unwavering gaze. He played of hardship and hope, of loss and love, of the dreams that flickered even in the darkest corners of the heart. The townspeople watched, a mixture of disbelief and morbid curiosity etching lines on their faces. Old Man Hemlock, who swore he hadn't heard music in 20 years, tapped his foot almost imperceptibly. Even Sheriff Brody, a man known for his stern demeanor, seemed to soften, his hand hovering over the brim of his hat. The song ended, the last note fading into the silence. Samuel, his face flushed, waited for the inevitable snickers, the cruel jokes. They didn't come. The Man in Black sat still for a long moment. Then, he slowly removed his dark glasses, revealing eyes the color of deep river water. He looked directly at Samuel, a spark of something unreadable in his gaze. "That's a song," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "That needs to be heard." He extended a hand, calloused and strong. "I'm Johnny. Johnny Cash." An unexpected invitation. The last chord of Samuel's harmonica hung in the air, a mournful echo against the backdrop of Harmony Springs' bustling market square. He braced himself, waiting for the familiar jeers and dismissive laughter. Instead, there was silence. A different kind of silence. Thick, expectant. A deep voice, weathered like old leather, broke it. That's something else, son." Samuel flinched. He hadn't heard anyone approach. He turned his head in the direction of the voice, his unseeing eyes scanning the space uselessly. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Name's Johnny. Johnny Cash." The name didn't register at first. Then, a tremor ran through Samuel. Johnny Cash. Here? In Harmony Springs? It had to be a prank. Another cruel joke. "All right, fellas, very funny," Samuel said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. Get on with you now. A chuckle, low and genuine, rumbled from the figure before him. I assure you, Samuel, I'm no prankster. I've been standin' here listenin' for the better part of an hour. You got a gift, son? A real gift. Samuel swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. The voice was warm. Sincere. He risked a question. You really Johnny Cash? The one and only. Though I gotta say, your rendition of Folsom Prison Blues has a certain vulnerability mine lacks. You play from a different kind of prison, don't you? Samuel didn't know how to respond. He'd only ever heard his music described as noise, a nuisance. Praise from anyone, let alone Johnny Cash, was unimaginable. I just play what I feel. Samuel stammered. And you feel it deep. Deep enough to move a stone. Tell me, Samuel. Cash continued, stepping closer. Have you ever played on a real stage? With a real crowd? Samuel shook his head, the gesture lost on his companion. Never. Nobody wants to hear a blind man play. Cash's voice hardened slightly. That's their loss, not yours. Listen, I'm playing a show up in Oak Haven next week. Small place, but good folks. I'd like to invite you to open for me. Samuel's heart lurched. Oak Haven? A real stage? With Johnny Cash? It was a dream, a fantasy he'd long ago buried deep inside. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Cash waited patiently. Think about it. I know it's sudden. But I hear something special in your music, Samuel. Something the world needs to hear. Give it a chance, will you? He placed a card in Samuel's hand. My number's on there. Call me if you're interested. Show starts next Saturday. Then, just as quickly as he had appeared, Johnny Cash was gone, swallowed by the bustling crowd. Samuel stood there, the card clutched tightly in his hand, the weight of it feeling impossibly heavy, the opportunity impossibly real. The sounds of the market swirled around him, but he heard none of it. All he could hear was the echo of Johnny Cash's invitation and the faint, flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, his dream wasn't dead after all. Whispers of doubt and envy. The aroma of brewing coffee and burnt toast hung heavy in Mabel's diner, thicker than the gossip swirling around the Formica tables. News traveled fast in Harmony Springs, and Samuel Johnson's name was on everyone's lips, seasoned with a generous helping of disbelief and envy. Johnny Cash? Betty Lou scoffed, stirring sugar into her coffee with enough force to crack the spoon. Harmonica Sam, playing with the Johnny Cash? That's a tall tale if I ever heard one. Her voice, sharp and raspy from years of unfiltered cigarettes, carried across the room. Across from her, Martha Pruitt adjusted her spectacles, her gaze darting nervously towards the window. Well, I saw that fancy car pull up outside his place yesterday. A big black thing. Could have been him, I suppose. Could have been the devil himself. Betty Lou muttered, unconvinced. Sam Johnson? Blind Sam? What's he ever done but sit on that porch, wailing on that harmonica? It's hardly Carnegie Hall material. A ripple of agreement spread through the diner. Samuel's music, once dismissed as the rambling of a harmless eccentric, was now being re-evaluated with a jaundiced eye. The years of ridicule, the casual dismissals, were suddenly cast in a different light. Had they been wrong? Was it possible that there was something more to the blind man and his harmonica than they had ever imagined? Old Man Hemlock, perched on his usual stool at the counter, grunted. Always said he had a touch. He mumbled through a mouthful of grits. Just needed a little encouragement. He didn't meet anyone's eye, his words more an admission than an endorsement. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the diner windows. The sky, normally a cheerful blue, was beginning to darken with the threat of rain. The change in weather seemed to mirror the shifting atmosphere inside. A seed of doubt had been planted, and with it, a burgeoning resentment. Why him? Why Samuel Johnson, the town's gentle laughingstock? Even Sarah May, the diner's eternally optimistic waitress, felt a prickle of unease. She liked Samuel. He always had a kind word, a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. But still. Johnny Cash? It felt like a cruel joke, a cosmic imbalance. She cleared her throat, forcing a smile. Well, if it's true, good for him. Maybe Harmony Springs will finally be on the map for something other than the annual corn festival. Her attempt at positivity fell flat. The whispers continued, laced with envy and the lingering suspicion that Samuel Johnson had somehow tricked them all. As the rain began to fall, drumming against the windows, a sense of unease settled over the town. The music of Harmony Springs was about to change, whether they liked it or not. Rehearsals and nerves. The harmonica sobbed, its plaintive sound reverberating within the time-worn barn. Samuel's fingers, toughened yet surprisingly agile, danced over the reed plate, summoning a melody both elemental and heartbreakingly tender. Stooped low, sweat slicking his brow, he was wholly consumed, oblivious to the sunbeams slicing through the weathered planks, illuminating swirling particles. Hours he'd labored since daybreak, each note a supplication, each phrase a desperate wish. The Opry's allure. Cash's legend. It all felt like spun glass, a breath away from shattering. A botched run, the notes colliding in a jarring clamor, stopped him cold. A curse escaped his lips, followed by immediate regret as he slashed the air with one hand. Focus, he needed to hold on to it. Not now. Blue, sensing his master's darkening spirit, offered a low whine, his cold, wet nose nudging Samuel's leg. The dog's steady presence was an unshakable solace, a furry bulwark against encroaching worry. Samuel obliged him with a scratch behind the ears. Easy, fella, he soothed. Just gotta nail it. He lifted the harmonica once more, but the tune had evaporated, leaving behind a discordant chorus of apprehension. What if his mind went blank? What if the amp died? Or worse, what if, instead of applause, the audience unleashed a tidal wave of derision, just as they had back in Harmony Creek? Old wounds throbbed. Faces twisted in cruel mimicry, voices laced with venom, echoed in his memory. Worthless cripple, they'd sneer. Think you can actually play? He clamped his eyes shut, fighting to mute them, but the phantom jeers persisted, a relentless tide of negativity. No, he declared, his voice wavering. They won't win this time. He drew a long breath, grounding himself in the tactile reality of the harmonica, the cool metal a comfort against his mouth. He pictured Johnny Cash, his unwavering gaze promising perseverance. He thought of Blue, his steadfast friend, always ready to offer a lick or a nudge when doubt threatened to drown him. He began anew, tentatively at first, the notes, fragile and unsure. Yet, as he poured his heart into it, the music gathered strength, sweeping him into its current. The shadows of fear retreated, chased away by a rising tide of passion, of incandescent joy. He closed his eyes, and for a heartbeat, he was transported, no longer confined within a dusty barn in Harmony Creek. He stood on that hallowed stage, bathed in the theater's warm embrace, his music resonating within the Grand Ole Opry. Blue, quiescent now, settled at his feet, chin resting upon Samuel's worn boot. The only sounds were the harmonica's lonesome cry and the whisper of wind sighing through the barn's ancient cracks. Rehearsals would continue until the final second. He knew, with a conviction that surprised even himself, that he would not betray Johnny Cash's memory. He wouldn't let Blue down. And above all, he would not forsake himself. He had a dream to chase, and he intended to unleash every last note within him. Oakhaven's grand stage. The taxi shuddered to a halt, the driver's voice a gruff announcement. Oakhaven Auditorium, pal. Can't get any closer. Samuel fumbled for his cane, a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. He played countless street corners, smoky bars, even the occasional church social, but this was different. This was Oakhaven. He pushed open the door, the roar of the crowd hitting him like a physical force. It wasn't just sound, it was a vibration that resonated through his bones, a low, expectant hum that spoke of thousands of souls crammed into one space. He gripped his harmonica case tighter. He hadn't imagined so many people. Doubts, like insidious weeds, began to choke his confidence. He shuffled forward, guided by the driver, then by a harried-looking stagehand who muttered apologies and directions in rapid succession. The air backstage was thick with the scent of sweat, dust, and something vaguely metallic, like hot wires. He could hear snippets of conversations, the tuning of instruments, the nervous coughs of other performers. It was a chaotic symphony of pre-show jitters. He was led to a small, cluttered dressing room. The stagehand pointed vaguely. 5 minutes. Don't screw it up. Then he was gone. Samuel sat heavily on a rickety chair, the harmonica case digging into his leg. 5 minutes. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic hammering of his heart. He imagined the faces out there, a sea of eyes, all focused on him. The ridicule he'd endured for so long echoed in his mind. Blind fool, they'd called him. Waste of a harmonica. A hand clapped him on the shoulder, startling him. He flinched. Easy there, son. The voice was deep, gravelly, and instantly recognizable. Johnny Cash. Samuel stammered. Mr. Cash. I didn't expect. Cash chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. Heard you playin' earlier. Got a real feel for it. Raw. Honest. That's what folks connect with. He crouched down, his face close to Samuel's. He smelled of cigarette smoke and something earthy, like freshly turned soil. Look, Cash said, his voice low and serious. There's gonna be a lot of people out there tonight. Some love you, some won't. That's the way it is. But you gotta forget about all that. Just play your heart out. Play like it's the last time you'll ever hold that harmonica. That's all anyone can ask. He squeezed Samuel's shoulder. They want the truth, son. Give it to 'em. He stood up, his silhouette towering in the doorway. Now go on out there and show 'em what you got. Cash turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Samuel? Yes, sir? Don't let the lights blind you. The door clicked shut. Samuel was alone again, but the crushing weight of his anxiety had lifted, replaced by a strange calm. He opened the harmonica case, the cool metal a familiar comfort against his fingertips. He closed his eyes, took another deep breath, and began to play. A slow, bluesy riff, a lament born of hardship and hope. It was his truth. And he was ready to share it. A song of triumph. The roar of the crowd was a physical thing, pressing against Samuel's skin like a humid blanket. He swallowed hard, the cotton of his shirt suddenly sticking uncomfortably to his back. Johnny Cash's hand rested firmly on his shoulder, a reassuring weight. They're ready for you, Sam. Cash's voice was a low rumble in his ear, a comforting presence in the swirling chaos. Just give them what you've got. Show them what's in your heart. Then he was being led forward, the stage lights blazing even through his closed eyelids. A microphone was adjusted, a single spotlight tightened. The murmur of the crowd intensified, laced with anticipation and, Samuel suspected, a healthy dose of skepticism. He could feel their eyes on him, a palpable pressure. Ladies and gentlemen. Cash's voice boomed, amplified and resonant. Tonight, we have someone truly special with us. He's got a heart full of soul and a harmonica that sings. Give a warm Oakhaven welcome to Harmonica Sam Johnson. A smattering of polite applause rippled through the auditorium, quickly overtaken by more enthusiastic cheers as Cash stepped back, leaving Samuel alone in the spotlight. He gripped his harmonica, its cool metal a familiar comfort in his trembling hand. He took a deep breath, focusing on the memory of fireflies dancing in the summer air, the scent of honeysuckle clinging to the breeze. He pictured his mother's smiling face, her gentle hand stroking his hair. He began to play. A single, clear note hung in the air, pure and resonant. Then another, weaving into a simple melody, a lament for lost things, for dreams deferred. The tune grew, swelling with emotion, a raw expression of longing and hope. Samuel poured everything he had into the music, his breath catching, his fingers dancing over the harmonica's surface. He forgot the crowd, the lights, even his own fear. He was lost in the song, a vessel for the music that flowed through him. The melody shifted, becoming more upbeat, a celebration of resilience, a declaration of defiance against the darkness. It was a song of triumph, of finding light in the face of adversity. The notes soared, filling the auditorium, chasing away the shadows. Gradually, the audience began to sway, their initial skepticism melting away. Feet began to tap, heads began to nod. A woman in the front row dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. A burly man in a cowboy hat closed his eyes, a faint smile playing on his lips. When the final note faded, a hush fell over the auditorium. Then it erupted. A thunderous wave of applause washed over Samuel, deafening and exhilarating. People were on their feet, cheering, whistling, their faces alight with emotion. He could feel the vibrations of their appreciation through the floorboards. He stood there, bathed in the warm glow of the spotlight, the harmonica still clutched in his hand, and for the first time in a long time, Samuel Johnson felt truly seen. Harmony Springs hero. The roar hit Samuel like a physical force. A wave of sound, a tsunami of approval. He'd finished his set, the final, mournful wail of his harmonica echoing in the Ryman Auditorium. Now, the applause thundered. He stood bathed in the warmth of the stage lights, picturing the faces he couldn't see, their expressions a blur of joyous appreciation in his mind. He bowed, a hesitant dip of his head, then a deeper, more confident one as the cheering intensified. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks, a flush of pride and disbelief warring with the familiar sting of years of mockery. Johnny Cash's arm draped around Samuel's shoulders, a solid, grounding presence. "Son," Cash boomed, his voice cutting through the lingering applause, "you just about tore this place down. Finest harmonica playin' I've heard in years. They ain't gonna forget Harmonica Sam Johnson anytime soon." Cash squeezed his shoulder, a gesture both paternal and congratulatory. Backstage, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Strangers clapped him on the back, offering hurried congratulations. Samuel, usually overwhelmed by such attention, found himself surprisingly calm, his heart swelling with a quiet satisfaction. This wasn't just about him. It was about proving them wrong, the doubters back in Harmony Springs, the ones who had stifled his dreams with their cruel laughter. The drive back to Harmony Springs felt different. The familiar winding roads seemed brighter, the air crisper. He wasn't just Samuel Johnson, the blind man with the harmonica, returning home. He was Harmonica Sam, the Ryman Auditorium performer. The sign welcoming visitors to Harmony Springs, usually a source of quiet dread, now seemed to gleam with a newfound significance. As the taxi pulled into the town square, Samuel heard it before he saw it, a band playing a lively tune, the unmistakable twang of a banjo leading the melody. The taxi door opened, and a wave of sound washed over him, voices shouting his name, children laughing, dogs barking, all laced with the music. He stepped out, his cane tapping against the pavement, and a hush fell over the crowd. Then a voice called out, "Welcome home, Sam!" It was Martha Peterson, the baker, her voice choked with emotion. Others joined in, a chorus of welcomes that swelled into a triumphant roar. He felt hands shaking his, pats on his back, the warmth of human connection he had so desperately craved. Old Man Hemlock, who used to call him Blind Fool Sam, stepped forward, hat in hand. "Samuel," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle, "we were wrong about you. You showed us all." He paused, then added, "My grandson, little Timmy, he wants to learn harmonica now. Says he wants to be just like you." Samuel smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes, unseen but radiant. He raised his harmonica to his lips and played a single, clear note. It hung in the air, a promise of hope, a testament to the power of dreams, a song of homecoming. Harmony Springs had its hero.